Chronic loneliness is as damaging to your health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Not metaphorically. Biologically, it raises your risk of early death by 26%, which is more than obesity. And here's the thing that changes how you see this. The people who suffer from it most are rarely the ones sitting alone on a Friday night. In this video, we're breaking down every type of loneliness, because most of us have been feeling the wrong kind and calling it the right name. Before we get into it, loneliness isn't one feeling. It's a whole family of feelings that wear the same name. What every type on this list has in common is that your brain is running a survival algorithm. It evolved in small tribes, now firing in a world your nervous system was never designed for. Some of these types you'll recognize from your own life immediately. Others might feel abstract at first, until you sit with them. We're going from the most familiar kind, the low-level hum almost everyone has felt, all the way to the type that only surfaces when you stare at the night sky long enough. Let's get into it. Social loneliness. You have a perfectly fine weekend. Nothing bad happened. Saturday was good, Sunday was quiet. But by Sunday evening, there's this low hum of emptiness you can't explain. Like something was missing, even though nothing went wrong. What's happening is your brain running a social head count. It evolved in small tribes where belonging meant survival. When your connections fall below a certain threshold, even temporarily, your brain treats it like a warning signal. Think of it like a social hunger. The same way your body signals that you need food, your mind signals that you need people. Not just any people. Enough people, frequently enough. And that threshold is higher than most of us realize. The difficult part is that it often shows up without warning. You could be genuinely busy, genuinely productive, genuinely okay, and still feel it. Because your brain doesn't care how your week went. It cares about who it went with. Here's what makes it tricky to fix. Researchers found that lonely brains become hypervigilant to rejection, more likely to read neutral faces as hostile. So the longer it goes on, the harder it is to reach out. Your brain starts treating the cure like another threat. But this kind is about the size of your circle. There's a different kind that has nothing to do with how many people you know. Emotional loneliness. You're at a party. People are laughing, stories are flying, and you're nodding along and smiling. But inside, you feel completely invisible. Like you could disappear, and no one would actually notice the specific you that just left. This isn't about the number of people in your life. It's about depth. Emotional loneliness happens when you don't have anyone who truly knows you. Not the version you present, but the unedited one. Your brain is wired to need at least one person who holds your full story. Without that, it registers as a different kind of danger than social loneliness. Less like hunger, more like thirst. More urgent, harder to ignore. What makes this so difficult to identify is that it can hide inside otherwise full lives. You can have a great social life, a loving family, even a partner, and still feel this. Because it's not about presence. It's about being truly seen. Here's the thing that reframes it. Studies consistently show that people with even one genuinely close confidant report higher well-being than people with dozens of casual connections and no one intimate. The brain doesn't count social contacts. It asks a different question. Is there someone who actually knows me? And then there's a type that has nothing to do with other people at all. Existential loneliness. You're having a deep conversation with someone you love, maybe the deepest one you've had in years. And for a moment, you realize they can never fully understand what it's like to be you. Not because they don't care, but because they're not you. And neither of you will ever fully cross that gap. This isn't about having too few connections. It's about having a self. Philosophers call this the unbridgeable gap between consciousnesses. The fact that your inner world, your precise experience of being alive right now, is fundamentally private. No language, no intimacy, no closeness fully dissolves it. Attachment brings you close to the edge of that gap, but it can't close it. And when you become aware of that, really aware, it can feel like falling. What makes this significant is that it often surfaces in moments of supposed connection. After sex, after a long, deep talk, in the middle of a hug. The closeness somehow makes the remaining gap more visible, not less. Here's what most people don't know. This kind of loneliness tends to peak in midlife and during illness. Not because people become more isolated, but because awareness of finitude makes the separateness of experience impossible to ignore. This one lives inside the self. The next one is about a sudden rupture in the outside world. Situational loneliness. You just moved to a new city for an exciting job. The opportunity is real. You're proud of yourself. But the first night in your apartment, you sit on the floor eating takeout, scrolling through your phone, and the silence feels heavier than you expected. This type has a clear cause. A life transition that stripped your social infrastructure. Moving cities. Starting a new job. Graduating. Leaving a relationship. Your existing network still exists, but it's suddenly remote, and your brain's social system goes into search mode. Think of it like your phone losing cell signal. You're still you. You still have contacts, but the connection just dropped. And until you rebuild local signal, there's a low-grade static that hums underneath everything. The important thing to know about situational loneliness is that it almost always resolves, but not as fast as most people expect. People tend to underestimate how long it actually takes to rebuild closeness in a new environment. Here's the number that put this in perspective. Studies show it takes an average of 3 years to build a social circle in a new city that feels as close as the one you left. 3 years. Not 3 months. But what happens when the situation resolves and the loneliness doesn't? Chronic loneliness. You've felt disconnected for so long that you've stopped expecting it to change. And when someone does invite you somewhere, there's a part of you that almost doesn't believe it's real, or doesn't trust that going will actually make you feel better. That skepticism isn't weakness. It's what chronic loneliness does to the brain. When loneliness persists for months or years, the nervous system adapts in ways that make it self-perpetuating. Cortisol, the stress hormone, stays elevated. Inflammation increases. And critically, the brain's threat detection system becomes sensitized to social rejection. It starts interpreting ambiguous situations as hostile. A slow text reply becomes evidence. An unreturned invitation becomes proof. The alarm is on, and it won't turn off. The hard part is that at this stage, the loneliness isn't just about having fewer friends. It's changed how you process social information. You're playing the game with a rule set that's quietly different from everyone else's. And you don't know it. Here's what most people don't realize about what's happening in the body. Chronic loneliness actually changes how your genes express. It activates a pattern that primes the body for injury, but weakens immune response to infection. You're not just feeling disconnected. Your biology is responding as if the threat is permanent. And it won't stand down until the loneliness does. But there's a type of loneliness that wears an even more convincing mask. Digital loneliness. You've spent the last hour on your phone scrolling through other people's dinners, trips, and group photos. And now you feel somehow more alone than you did before you picked it up. That's not an accident. Social media is designed to give you the sensation of social connection, without most of the ingredients that actually satisfy the brain's social circuit. Real connection requires physical co-presence. Eye contact, touch, shared silence, unedited emotion. What a screen delivers is a highlight reel with a like button. Your brain gets just enough signal to stop you from putting the phone down, but not enough to actually feel filled. And then there's the comparison layer. You're not just missing connection. You're watching curated proof that other people have the exact thing you're missing. The brain processes this as social exclusion, even when it isn't. The pain response fires the same way. Here's the finding that actually changes behavior. A University of Pennsylvania study found that limiting social media use to 30 minutes a day significantly reduced loneliness and depression within just 3 weeks. Not completely eliminated, but meaningfully reduced. The phone isn't just failing to fix the loneliness. In many cases, it's feeding it. Some loneliness is visible from the outside, but the next one is practically invisible, even to the people closest to you. Invisible loneliness. Everyone thinks you're the social one, the fun one, the one who always has something going on. And you let them think that, because explaining the gap between who they see and how you actually feel seems impossible, and you've tried before and it didn't land. This is the loneliness that hides inside apparent success. It's particularly common in people who are good at performing social ease. Extroverts, caregivers, therapists, people who became the strong one early in life. The performance becomes so convincing that even close people stop offering the depth you actually need. And there's often a layer of shame on top of it. Because how do you explain that you're lonely to the people you've been pretending to be fine in front of? What keeps this kind going is the belief that revealing the real feeling will disappoint or overwhelm the people you care about. So the mask stays on. And the longer it stays on, the more the authentic self gets obscured. Even to yourself. Here's the fact that changes how you see this. Research on loneliness in therapists and healthcare workers consistently shows higher than average scores, despite these people spending their entire professional day in deep emotional contact with others. Depth of contact is not the same as being truly known. And then there's a loneliness that isn't about living. It's about losing. A grief loneliness. Something funny happens, the kind of thing they would have laughed at, and your first instinct is to call them. For half a second, you actually forget they're gone. And then you remember. And the forgetting makes the remembering feel worse. Grief loneliness is different from every other type on this list. It isn't about an absence in your life generally. It's about a specific vacancy. When you lose someone who is central to your internal world, your brain doesn't immediately recalibrate. Neural pathways built around that person keep firing. Habits of thought that included them keep running. You're not just missing a person. You're missing a version of yourself that only existed in relation to them. This is why grief loneliness can't be soothed by replacing the connection. It's not a slot waiting to be filled. It's a phantom, the shape of someone specific, in a space where they used to be. Here's the detail most people never hear. Up to 80% of widows and widowers in the first year after loss report briefly, but vividly sensing the presence of the person they lost. Hearing their voice, seeing them in a crowd. It's not grief distorting perception. It's the brain's attachment system still searching for a signal it hasn't learned to stop expecting. The last type on this list doesn't come from losing a person. Cosmic loneliness. You're lying outside looking at the night sky, and instead of feeling connected to something larger, you feel completely erased by it. Like your entire existence is a flicker that the universe will never notice and won't remember when it's over. This type of loneliness doesn't come from other people. It comes from a collision between two things: the human desire for meaning and the universe's silence in response to it. Your brain evolved to look for patterns, for signal, for reciprocity. It built relationships, religions, philosophies, all in part to answer the question the night sky keeps asking: does any of this matter? And on a cosmic scale, the evidence is that it doesn't. Not to the universe. The universe doesn't have preferences. What makes this type psychologically significant is that it can coexist with a deeply connected, loving life. You can have everything and still feel this. Because it's not about your relationships. It's about your relationship with existence itself. Here's what I find most interesting about it. Philosophers and psychologists increasingly describe cosmic loneliness as uniquely human. The only species that feels lonely in relation to the universe itself. In a strange way, that awareness is not a flaw in consciousness. It might be the furthest edge of it. Every type of loneliness on this list is your brain doing something ancient, running a search for the conditions it needs to feel safe, seen, and real. The fact that so many of these searches come up empty isn't a flaw in you. It's a reflection of how hard the modern world makes it to actually meet those conditions. What's strange is that loneliness is one of the most universal human experiences, and also one of the most isolating ones to carry. Because it comes with a built-in lie that you're the only one who feels it this way. Which type felt most familiar to you? Drop it in the comments. You'd be surprised how many people are quietly sitting with the same answer. Subscribe for a new video every week. We cover the things that are hard to put into words. See you in the next one.